So, what can a text that's over 1,400 years old really tell us about the cosmos? Today, we're going to explore some of the Qur'an's surprisingly precise descriptions of the sun and the moon. We'll dive right into specific verses and see how centuries of interpretation reveal this really detailed picture of celestial mechanics.
So that's the big question, right? How does a text from the 7th century talk about the way things move in space? You might expect some beautiful poetic metaphors, and they're there, but the interpretations we're going to look at point to something, well, something far more specific. So let's break it all down, starting with our very own star.
All right, first up, the sun. The Quran doesn't just describe it as a big, static ball of fire in the sky. It's talked about as something dynamic, an object with a purpose, and a very specific path.
This verse from Surah Yasin is really our starting point. Now, the key phrase to lock onto here is that the sun runs on its course. This isn't just a casual poetic description. The actual Arabic word used here is incredibly important. That word is tajri. And this is so crucial because it doesn't just mean to move. It gives the sense of a powerful current, a purposeful flow, kind of like a river running in its designated channel. So it really paints a picture of controlled, directed motion along a set orbit, not just aimless drifting through space.
And this is exactly how classical interpreters, like Ibn Qutayba, saw it. For them, that description of running defined a really precise cyclical path. The idea is that the sun has a destination, a point it reaches before it returns, which emphasizes a predictable and masterfully designed system. But the text makes another really critical distinction. It uses different words for the sun's light and the moon's light. The sun is called a siraj, which means a burning lamp, something that generates its own heat and light. The moon, on the other hand, is a nur, which simply means a light. Now, a nur could be its own source or it could be a reflection, and that little distinction is key, especially when we turn our attention to the moon.
Okay, so if the sun is a lamp, then what's the moon? Well, the Quran describes its relationship to the sun in a very specific way. It's a follower.
This verse from Surah Ash-Shams really sets the stage. An oath is taken first by the sun and its brilliant light, and then, right after, by the moon when it follows it. And just like before, the specific word choice here is everything. The word is the leha, and scholars like Ibn Ashur point out that you can see this following for yourself, most clearly during a full moon, right? Just as the sun is setting in the west, the full moon is rising in the east, almost like it's literally following the sun's path across the sky. But, there's an even deeper layer to this interpretation. And here is the absolute crucial point. Ibn Ashur connects the moon following the sun directly to where it gets its light. His interpretation is that the moon's light isn't its own, but is actually derived from the sun. He goes so far as to call this a scientific miracle, an insight into the nature of reflected light, stated centuries before it became common scientific knowledge. So, now we've seen the sun as a running lamp and the moon as a reflective follower. Let's zoom out. How do these sources interpret the Quran's description of the grand structure that holds all of this together? This verse gets right to a fundamental question. What holds everything up? It says the heavens were created without pillars that you see. Now, that last part, of course, is the key, that you see. Let's break this down for a second. The text doesn't say there are no pillars. It says there are no pillars that you can see. And interpreters really zoom in on this nuance. They suggest it means there are supports, they're just invisible to us. And for many modern readers, this immediately brings to mind unseen forces, like gravity, holding the entire cosmos together. And this idea of a perfect, stable system is reinforced right here. This verse highlights the complete lack of any inconsistency or flaw in creation. It's a system designed with absolute precision. But why connect this perfection to the name the most merciful? What's the link? Well, according to Ibn Ashur's commentary, the connection is direct and powerful. The flawless, predictable nature of the universe is, in itself, an act of mercy. Why? Because if there were any inconsistency, if an orbit just faltered or a force failed, it would lead to unimaginable chaos and destruction for all of us. The order is the mercy. So, what does this all add up to? The sources we've looked at don't see these as just a bunch of isolated facts. They see them as individual pieces that fit together to form a single, coherent picture of the universe. So let's just recap the system we've seen. First, you have a running sun moving on a very precise course. Second, you have a reflecting moon that follows it. And third, you have an unseen order, invisible pillars, holding it all together perfectly. It's a picture of an intricate and flawlessly engineered cosmos.
And this brings us to the ultimate purpose behind these descriptions, according to these sources. They aren't just presented as little bits of scientific trivia. They're framed as signs, phenomena in the sky and on the earth that are meant to inspire awe, reflection, and a much deeper contemplation of the universe and its creator.
And this leaves us with a final question to think about. How can these ancient texts, filtered through both classical and modern interpretation, spark a genuine dialogue with science today? That's really the ongoing conversation between faith, language, and our endless quest to understand the cosmos.